Looking at the YouTube comments on the YouTube chat, it says, we are so lucky to have Ken hosting today. Now we have the privilege of staring at that fat tub of lard all day. If I were him, I'd walk my fat ass into oncoming traffic.
That, of course, brought to you by Scheiben Jewelers, Cleveland's premier jewelry store.
I think it'd be bad news for the traffic.
It's actually from the movie Billy Madison. But you can leave comments like that
Yes, you can.
On our free YouTube channel, which is at 92.3 The Fan on YouTube. You can watch us live. There you go.
And maybe you can walk your fat ass into traffic.
You can tell me to walk my fat ass right into oncoming traffic. Nathan Zegura, he said it to me multiple times. He might have texted it to me this morning. Hello, Nathan. He's on the fan hotline.
I would never. What an awful thing to say to somebody, Ken. Makes me sad.
Then why have I heard it so many times and so many people are nice to me?
I don't know. Maybe you need new friends.
No. I love them all that way. All right, Nathan. Browns play the Bills on Sunday. The Bills, it feels like the first time since Thurman Thomas, have a running game. That's not good for us. What has Jim Schwartz done differently to try to thwart this? Because James Cook is certainly he's cooking. He's playing really well.
Yeah, James Cook is playing very well. Second in the NFL in rushing, career high 1,415 yards, 5.2 yards a carry. They're the number one running offense in the NFL. And if you look at Cook and Allen together, they basically rushed for 2,000 yards and 22 touchdowns already this season. So, yeah, that is a problem. Now, one of the things I want to point out when we're talking about a guy like James Cook, he's got 11 games with more than 100 total yards this year. That's the most in the NFL. But their offensive line is doing an excellent job. James Cook has 467 yards rushing before contact in the year 2025. 467. That's 33% of his rushing yards this season. To contrast that with Quinshon Judkins, this year has rushed for 805 yards. Quinshon Judkins has 43 yards before contact. 43. James Cook has 467. So that shows you right there that, number one, our offensive line is not getting the job done for our running back. Their offensive line is 467 before contact versus 43. It is crazy. It's an appalling stat, to be honest with you. But James Cook, he has been dominant. They don't really have a true number one receiver there, so they rely on Josh Allen spreading the football around as he does. Khalil Shakir is their leading receiver. Dalton Kincaid, I don't know if we'll see him. He leads the team in tight ends. Dawson Knox has 3 tight ends himself. Keon Coleman's got 4. So they kind of spread the ball around. But when on the ground, it's James Cook. It's designed runs for Josh Allen. Then Josh Allen, obviously, so effective at scrambling at his size at 6'5", 237. He's got at least 12 rushing touchdowns in 3 straight seasons, 77 rushing touchdowns on his career for Josh Allen, by the way, who's 1 touchdown away from becoming not only the youngest player by about 2 years, but also the fastest player by about a season to reach 300 career offensive touchdowns. So you got the reigning MVP. You've got a guy who's got to be in consideration, I would think, for Offensive Player of the Year in James Cook. So this is a very difficult offense, and the Browns defense the last few weeks on a run defense perspective, they've given up those explosives, and that's what James Cook does as well as anybody.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, there's been some groans about Quinshon Judkins here over the last couple of weeks, and Shedeur Sanders has been your leading rusher over the last couple of weeks, which people don't really want that, and neither do I. But now Quinshon Judkins is taking a little bit of blame, and I'm going, his offensive line is not able to run block. He's had trouble, and I think that can be very frustrating for Judkins.
Yeah, he's been hit behind the line of scrimmage on more than half of his carries this year. He has one of the highest percentages in the NFL of his total rushing yards being yards coming after contact. We know right there because it's 5.6 before. It's 94.4% of his yards are coming after contact, where it's just 66% for James Cook. So he's in an impossible situation. And I think the thing that you hope is, you think about a quarterback who can develop bad habits from getting hit early in their career. You don't want him to develop any bad habits because, quite frankly, he's having, as soon as he gets the ball, to try to make somebody miss. And you go back and you watch the tape. I was talking about this with Joe Thomas on Monday. We do a lot of what they call Y across, or, they got sometimes a split zone where the tight end on the front side actually goes and comes across the formation in the run action and blocks the end on the backside. And that's an important block. And we've whiffed that block a lot. I mean, completely whiffed it. And that's the problem when you watch, is that we've had so many situations where one guy doesn't do their job, and they're not just not doing their job in the run game, they're completely whiffing. And that's how you get people hit in the backfield with the regularity that we're seeing. So, yeah, it has been as tough a sledding for Quinshon Judkins as exists in the National Football League. Last week against the Chicago Bears, a team that was giving up 5.1 yards a carry this season on the ground, 2 running backs over 5 yards a carry. We ran 14 designed runs. We did not have a single run that reached 5 yards. Our long run of the day was 4 yards. Our second long run of the day was 3 yards if you exclude Shedeur Sanders, his scrambles. So that is not who this team is supposed to be. That is not who this team has ever been under Kevin Stefanski, and it is definitely disappointing, and it's got to be frustrating for Quinshon.
Nathan Zegura with us. You know, I saw that pass block win rate statistic last week that actually seemed more encouraging than what it looked like on the field. What do you make of some of the ways that, you know, the offensive line has played in pass protection when it comes to Shedeur? Because obviously we're seeing the pressure rates end up very high, but his time to throw has also been very high. So there seems to be a lot of noisy numbers when it comes to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of, in terms of Shedeur, you know, one of the highest time to throw rates in the NFL. And so I think that's one of the things you want him to work on. We're seeing him hit explosives, right? He's got 4 pass plays of 50 yards since he's become the starter. That's the most in the NFL. Numbers 2 and 3 in that same category have 2 each. They add up to 4. So he's hitting the explosives. What we need from Shedeur is to get a little bit more in rhythm. The Browns, this is Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Focus did not assign a single one of the sacks against the Bears, of the 5 sacks, to the offensive line. So I think that's part of the learning process for Shedeur Sanders, and we're seeing teams do a lot of disguising. That's what they do. I don't know if you guys saw that awesome clip of Kirk Cousins talking about how good defenses have gotten at disguising coverages, and now it's sometimes you have to just go with a pure progression. And that's something that he's going to have to learn. That's not something that he was doing a ton of in college. So I think kind of getting those quick hitters, staying in rhythm, that's going to help. The line did a better job pass blocking last week. That is certainly true. On the season, though, the pass blocking for the Browns is near the bottom of the league. What's crazy about it is, you know who they're right next to? The L.A. Rams. And Matt Stafford is having absolutely no problem throwing the football. We saw last night when he threw for 450 yards there. Puka Nacua was over 200. So I think part of that is his knowledge, obviously his talent. This is the number 1 overall pick, but there are opportunities to, I think, be a little bit more consistent in the pass game, and that's the evolution for Shedeur. He's hitting the big plays, and boy, do we love that, but we need to kind of have a little bit more consistency. We started to see that, I think, a little bit against Tennessee, where it was a little more in rhythm. This week, the Browns were just so behind the 8 ball early. I think it just was very, very tough for this offense and for him certainly to operate.
What is Pro Football have they ever explained their process about blaming or crediting, which is bad credit, an offensive line for sacks or the quarterback for sacks? That's all 5. That's pretty glaring.
I think it's usually based on, because there are plenty of sacks that are certainly credited to offensive linemen. I think it's probably usually based on a quick pressure where, for example, they just get beat, and it gets, pressure that gets there under 3 seconds or under 2.5 seconds, and that leads directly to the sack. That's going to be on the offensive lineman. I think it's the situations where the ball's being held, 3.5, 4 seconds. And at some point, guys maybe even run into a sack, or it's not that the blocker got beat, it's just that the pocket is moved and now the quarterback's not where they expected, and people run into some sacks. So that would be my guess. I haven't heard that directly from them, but that would be kind of the way that I would think about it if I was trying to chart such a thing.
You and Andrew very critical, and rightfully so, of the special teams over the course of really the entire season. But we've gotten to this point, and I did ask just from, and I know that you talk to people in the building and people that could analyze such things. How could it be that their coverage units are this bad? Is it the strategy, or is it they don't have the right players, or they're not accessible? Those players aren't even accessible that they could use on special teams to this point.
It's a great question, and I think if there was a simple fix, it would be fixed already, right? I think that you look at Bubba and what he's been able to do here in years past, or certainly what he did in Indianapolis. So I think he played special. I think he understands special teams. Now the kickoff rules have changed, and certainly we haven't been great at that. But you could make a case that early in his tenure here, we had guys like Mike Ford and Matt Adams and Tony Brown who were literally on the roster as professional special teams players, and we don't have those guys this year. It's a combination of things, but at the end of the day, this is the NFL. You got a lot of guys out there, you understand, and what we're doing is just not happening around the league. it's only happening to us. So we've really struggled in that department. It has been frustrating, I think. And from a special teams, if there's a bright spot in, Andre Schmidt and the way that he has performed after week 1 has been excellent. And I think maybe you found your kicker, which would be a wonderful thing. He's a great kid. But yeah, it's disappointing because if you go back to it at the beginning of the year, this team was going to do 3 things, right? This was kind of the way that they were going to win, was to play great defense. And I think, for the most part, we certainly have done that. We've been an elite defense, at least through the majority of the season. Last couple of weeks, not as good. You were going to run the football effectively and then hit big plays off of that. Now, we haven't really run it effectively, unfortunately. We are starting to hit some big plays now with Shedeur. And then you were going to be at least neutral to good on special teams, and that just has unfortunately not been the case. The special teams unit has been, I think, directly linked to multiple losses this season that have changed kind of the course of this season. So I don't have the answer. I think that if there was a quick answer, it would be fixed. It's kind of like in the run game. Why aren't we running the ball well? If it was an easy thing, it would be done already. But it comes down to me to people understand their jobs. No coach just schemes things up to give up long returns. People just have to execute, stay in their lanes, understand their assignments, and then, like I said, execute it when it matters. And we have not executed at nearly a high enough level this year.
Nathan Zegura joining us. Take me around the league with you for a moment. Mike Tomlin, he'll be the head coach in Pittsburgh next year, do you think?
Yeah, kind of looks like they are in the driver's seat a little bit. As long as they beat the Ravens in the last week, it doesn't even matter what they do the next 2 weeks. But it would feel like the guys never had a losing season. I realize they've not won a playoff game in a very long time, but it is kind of amazing to me thinking about kind of some of the things that we've endured, certainly you and I in our time that we've worked together covering this football team, that I've worked for this football team. I would take never having a losing season. That sounds great, but I think he will be the head coach there unless he decides he's done.
Nathan, yesterday, he throws 2 picks. They're down really, really big. Sam Darnold for the Seahawks, they come back against the Rams. Does he change the narrative at all about him not being able to perform in big games, or are we just going to have to wait until the playoffs for him?
Yes, to both. I think that, honestly, because I think that he did a good, if that game ended the way that it looked like it was going to end, and of course you get the punt return from Rashid Shaheed, but if that game had ended the way it looked like it was going to end, that was going to be all the noise. And you were going to say, oh, man, this is so similar to when Minnesota lost to Detroit late last year, and then they went in the playoffs and they fizzled out immediately. Maybe that's Sam Darnold's MO. Good in the early portion of the season, can't finish it in the big games. But to go and to win this game, and I know there was controversy, the 2-point conversion, all of those things, but to go and win this game, I think does somewhat change the narrative on him because this was a huge game for control, really, and of the path to maybe be the number 1 seed in the NFC. And he got it done. He delivered down the stretch, brought them back. They end up winning this game in overtime in a fun one, in an absolute shootout. But I still want to see Sam Darnold deliver in the playoffs. But there's no question he has completely rehabilitated his image the last 2 years. What he needs to do to take that next step, though, is win some playoff games. This was close to a playoff game, and it was headed down a very ugly path early on, but he rallied them, and they won, and ultimately that's the job.
Nathan, got a question for you.
Oh, God.
Baker Mayfield. Your thoughts?
The quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the dogfight, 2 out of the last 3 against Carolina to see who can come out of that division and likely get bounced in round 1 of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's been such a roller coaster. The guy was MVP consideration early
After
on.
6 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously he's hurt. There's no doubt you can watch him throw. He doesn't look right. But it's just so eerily familiar. And even the advanced numbers have him as one of the worst quarterbacks in football over the stretch since he got hurt. So, it's the same exact situation.
Before he got hurt, it's really after those 6 weeks. It started, he got hurt, a month ago? Mm-hmm. It started before that. It's really been since week 6. I don't know. Obviously, he's an incredibly talented quarterback, and when things are good, they are really, really good. I think that, that's one of the things that Tampa's now going to have to ask itself as he looks to get a much bigger. And these are conversations I've even seen that are happening down in Tampa is, are we paying him the big bucks? And I think that's going to be interesting and probably, how he finishes this season out. Carolina had it and they lost a game that they absolutely should have won against New Orleans. And so now they play each other 2 of the last 3. That'll be fun to watch, meaningful football. But, yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting situation with him. You know he is a good player. You know he can be, from a statistical standpoint, productive. But where does he actually put you in the NFL, and what is it that you're trying to accomplish with him? And I think those are the hard questions they have to ask, because at his best, he is prolific as a passer, and that's why he was the number 1 overall pick. There's no question. He's incredibly talented. He's matured. He's done a great job down there, but there are ups and downs, and when things aren't all the way right, clearly it affects his performance on a major level.
Well,
so
if
it's
they
going
have
to be
to
an
make
interesting finish down there.
Yeah, Nathan, if they have to make a tough decision, are you interested in getting the old band back together again?
What tough decision would they have to make?
How in the world is this what we're talking about right now?
Because it's this show. You're on this show.
It's a big
you know how this show is.
I like to monitor the rest of the NFL.
Yeah, you know how this works.
Especially the NFC South.
But didn't we just talk? Oh, you weren't. I guess, you know what? We talked about him last week, Lima, but you weren't in, right?
I was not here.
Nope. You weren't.
Yeah, so that's why I'm getting the back-to-back. Okay, so, I got it.
Well, this is the thing. I thought about this yesterday, that it's been so long since we've done just the name question. We're like, Nathan Zegura with us on the show. Nathan Baker Mayfield. And then we just pause. And it's been so long, and he did that to you, and I wanted to kill him earlier today, and now I wanted to hug him. Because it was like, of all the people, and Nathan, just this long pause. He's the quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I just wonder, is Baker filming too many commercials again? 216.
I brought that up. It's either A, he's playing injured and there's a problem. B, he's not as great as what he starts out the season, which is probably the most true. Or C, he just can't do commercials. He can't take success. That's the one you don't want. It's the one you don't want.
I think he has an unbelievable amount of talent, and when it's going good, it's going really, really well. And when he is a little bit off his game, whether that be injury or for whatever reason,
it looks unplayable.
It's a little bit tougher for him. It's tougher for him, because he did at the beginning of the season when he was running through that MVP thing through those kind of 6 weeks. That's when he was leading them down on game-winning drives, kind of every single game. I think the first 4 games, if I'm not mistaken, or 4 out of the first 5, something like that. And, that had not been necessarily his MO throughout his career. And you thought, okay, maybe now he's kind of put that piece of it together. But as the season's gone on, that hasn't been the case. But he's really talented. So his good is always going to be really good.
Yeah.
And he's got the charisma. He's a leader. The guys in the locker room down there in Tampa certainly love him. The question is going to be, what is the true ceiling? Like, at this point in his career, do we know what his true ceiling is as a quarterback? And I think what I said last week about it was, I think he's better, and I said this clearly. I think he's better. But you go back and look at what Andy Dalton did at some of those times with the Bengals. They were very good. They won the division a lot. There was a cap, it felt like, on where it ultimately could go. And that's the question with Baker. What is the actual cap on where it could go? And if he can go on a great run and get in, I think people are looking at the playoffs this year as the most wide open they've ever been. They are.
Nothing. Liva's got you going.
The 4 seeds on both sides, I'd say, for whoever comes out of if the Steelers come out of our division, I think the consensus would be that's not a team that can win the AFC.
Sure.
If the Ravens come in, you never know, because it's the Ravens.
Yeah.
But in the NFC side, I'm pretty sure that the consensus will be whoever comes out of the NFC South, whether it's Tampa or Carolina, that they're not going to come out of the NFC. And so that's kind of just the question that teams have to ask themselves. And listen, we know how hard it is when those are conversations we'd love to have. Like, are we good enough to win a Super Bowl? Yeah, we're good enough to win a division. Are we good enough to win a Super Bowl? And hopefully those are conversations we can have, and the answer to both could be yes. But right now, that's not where we are, which is unfortunate.
Nathan, thank you very much for the time. All the best.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Monfrere. Nathan Zegura on the Fan Hotline.